Well, everybody, welcome back. It's been a long absence, but I'm back. Nick's back. Chris is back. We're all three back. It's time to talk some baseball right here on the Rebel Wall. Check us out, man. Check us out. We've got new stuff thanks to Bo at HYDR. You guys always follow him on Twitter. Chris and Nick, welcome. It's so good to be back. It's great to be back. Nick, obviously football season's over. Glad to have you a part of the baseball show. Obviously, you guys are used to me and Chris handling the baseball, and that will be the case for the most part. But for this opening show, we wanted to bring Nick on as well and get his thoughts. But Chris, it's been a while since I've talked to you. How have you been? And I know you're excited for baseball season.
Everything's great, Austin. Hope all is well with you. Baseball season, obviously, right around the corner. I think we're at the 9-day mark or 10-day mark right now. So I'm really jacked up. I've been checking out a couple scrimmages on Facebook. Team looks really good. I think everybody's ready to roll. I know the fans are ready to roll, so I'm super pumped.
Yeah, and obviously it would not be the appropriate start to this show without watching one more thing just one more time because it never gets old. So check this out, guys. Let's just find out what happened last year.
Wants to pitch. Struck him out. From last four in to last team standing. Ole Miss has won the College World Series.
One of my favorite lines ever from commentators was from last four in to last team standing. And that's all that matters. Are you the last team standing? It never gets old watching that video. Brandon is the greatest. I love BJ. I'm really going to miss him on the mound when it comes time to close games, but Ole Miss is in good hands with the pitching staff they've got. Chris, you and I were there for that. It was fantastic. Nick, I don't guess you were there.
I was there earlier in the week.
You were there earlier in the week, but it was a lot of fun. So Ole Miss, for the first time under Mike Bianco and for the first time ever, is defending a championship in college baseball, starting in, as Chris said, about 10 days on the with the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens. That's going to be not a pushover team either. We'll get to that in a little while. But guys, first and foremost, we have a lot to get into tonight. We're going to dive into a lot. The schedule has obviously already been released. The TV schedule has already been released. That came out earlier today. We'll get into all of that. But first and foremost, guys, any particular games that we're looking forward to? We're not going to go through the entire schedule tonight. That would take way too long. It would take up the entirety of the show, and we've got too much to talk about. But I know there are some games that we're all looking forward to. Chris, we haven't talked to you in a while. We'll start with you. I know you've got some games marked on your schedule in particular that you're looking forward to going to in person, but also just seeing. So hit us with your favorites for the year.
Absolutely. The first one I'm looking forward to is the A&M series. A&M is obviously very highly ranked. And for me personally, it's a drive trip for me. So that's really exciting to be able to go down to College Station. They always have great fan representation. Those fans will be rowdy from the first inning to the last inning. So really looking forward to the trip to College Station. And then one that probably everybody circled on their calendar is that late April series when the Tigers come to town. It should be jumping off the field and everything else like that. The Tigers are obviously very high. LSU Tigers are very highly ranked. They've got a ton of talent that they've amassed from both the transfer portal and as well as people that they have had on their team before. So I'm really looking forward to those two series, the A&M series and the LSU series.
Very good series. LSU is, if I'm not mistaken, the unanimous number one in every poll. So they are very highly touted coming into this season for sure. All right, Nick, I know you've been looking over the schedule. So Chris says A&M and LSU are two big ones for him. Those are certainly going to be big series, especially as up as those two teams are. What about you, Nick? What are you looking at for this year?
Yeah, definitely Arkansas at home. I think that's a big one. That's the second weekend and SEC. So, facing them in Omaha, they got one from us, but we got them back and went to the championship series. And then you can't not mention Mississippi State. I mean, every year, that's the big one. And, that's the state bragging rights. So those two to me, Arkansas and Mississippi State are definitely the ones I've got circled.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path with my first one. I'm really looking forward to that Maryland series early on. Now, we're actually going to play them twice if you count that tournament up in the North. We're going to play some teams we never see, which I'm looking forward to. Maryland was really good last year. They hosted a regional last year, and they are on the up. And I am looking forward to seeing a team in Oxford that Ole Miss never sees, hardly ever plays. You're not going to see many Big Ten teams over the course of a season. Or ACC teams, anybody on that, really on those conferences outside of postseason play. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them. But my SEC series that I've kind of had circled outside of those, not because I don't want to be repetitive here. I'm looking forward to going to Vanderbilt and trying to take down Tim Corbin's Commodores. That's always a very important series. And we basically replaced Tennessee on the east side this year with Vanderbilt, the other well-established program over there. Florida obviously is on the schedule, but they've kind of been up and down a little bit. Tennessee clearly on the rise. But Vanderbilt's always real solid. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how the Rebels do with Tim Corbin's bunch, and then hopefully get some revenge on Alabama later in the year because they almost did us in last year. So hopefully going to get a little revenge on them down in Tuscaloosa right before the end of the season there. So looking forward to some of those. A lot of good games on the schedule this year. The schedule this year is not a walk in the park by any means for Ole Miss. A lot of tough series on the road. And this, of course, the year we play Mississippi State mostly in Starkville this season. So that's always a tough one. And I'm surprised they're not ranked coming into the season. Now, granted, they had a horrible year last year. I do not foresee the Bulldogs staying out of the poll very long.
I think that D1 Baseball has had them in that 26 to 30 range. So I think you're absolutely right, Austin. They've got a good nucleus coming back, and I don't think that their fans are going to tolerate too much of the middle of the road stuff. So I'm sure I know their fans are ready for them to be back in the polls, and I'm sure that Chris Lemonis is ready to get them back in the national talk as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we mentioned, of course, Ole Miss is defending their championship for the first time ever. This is a rare thing for teams to win back-to-back championships, but perhaps there's never been a team more dominant in college baseball than Southern California in the 70s. They won 5 consecutive championships from 70 to 74. They were unstoppable. Before that, it was Texas in 49 and 50. That was right after the College World Series became a thing. It only has been around since 1947. Stanford won it in 87-88. LSU won it in 96-97. Oregon State 06-07. And the last team to do it was South Carolina in 2010 and 2011. So it has been over 10 years since anyone has won back-to-back titles in College World Series. Ole Miss has lost quite a few key pieces from that team last year, obviously. To name probably the most famous Ole Miss Rebel of all time at this point, Tim Elko, is no longer on the team. You lose Hayden Dunhurst. You lose several players like that who were just key proponents or propellants of that win, essentially. Dylan DeLucia was only here for 1 year, but he feels like he was a Rebel for a long time. You lose Brandon Johnson, always we mentioned. And unfortunately, we lose Mallets for the year due to surgery. That's a blow, but Ole Miss is really bringing in some quality pitching this year. And Chris, I know you in particular were mentioning projected starters. Obviously, Hunter Elliott goes without saying. He's a starter. We know this. And the kid is, if he can improve on what he did last year, my goodness, what are we in for this year? What a year the young freshman sensation had. Other than that, it's kind of up in the air, essentially. It hasn't been guaranteed, although there are pretty educated guesses as to who is going to start this year. But Chris, go ahead. I know you are big on pitching stats. You're always so well educated on the pitching and on the roster. So by all means, we'll let you start with this one and kind of go over your thoughts on the pitching staff this year.
He talked a little bit about Hunter, and Hunter's obviously locked in on Friday night. I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that he's going to be our Friday night guy. It would absolutely shock me that if he wasn't the Friday night guy for the entire season. I mean, his stuff is just so good. He's just such a cool customer on the mound. He doesn't get rattled. Even in the Miami series, when he allowed some base runners on early against Miami, he never let that get him down. He wanted to throw a strike. I mean, self-admittedly, in the Belief movie, he's like, well, I need to throw a strike. I don't want to throw it down the middle, but I got to get a strike here. So Hunter's locked down. I think the next guy for me is the freshman from Collierville, Grayson Saunier. Saunier's been really dominant super dominant, according to some people, in the fall. So I think he'll come in at one of the spots. I don't know that Bianco will start him on Saturday. I don't know that that's something that Bianco usually does, is start freshman on Saturday, but he definitely is going to be either a Friday or Saturday guy. If you look at what happened in the draft, so he did get drafted in the 17th round, but in talking to one of the managers recently, he's just not a 17th round guy. And so it was really evident to me that he was going to come to Ole Miss after he got drafted so late in the draft. And then when you get to the back end of the rotation, you're really flipping coins with a couple guys. But I think I might give the edge to Jack Doherty based upon what Mike has done with the preseason scrimmages. So if you look at the preseason scrimmages that we've had on you'd call them game one of the weekend. So the last 2 weekends, game one, he's thrown Jack Doherty against Hunter Elliott for the first couple innings of the first game. So I think that Jack gets the start on the first weekend.
I'm very curious on that as well. Jack, what a coming out party he had in Omaha on short notice, coming out there pitching 5 perfect innings when Ole Miss needed it most last year. So I'm really excited to see how he grows. I would certainly not be surprised if you were absolutely correct on that we see him as a starter. I am intrigued by Xavier Rivas, the transfer from Indianapolis, the lefty. And now having 2 lefties in a starting rotation for Ole Miss on a weekend, that's something we haven't seen in quite a while, if I'm not mistaken. We've tended to have mostly righties on the starting on the mound, except for Hunter, obviously. So that would be an interesting lineup. He did very well at Indianapolis, 10-1, 2.87. Obviously, it's Indianapolis. It's not SEC competition, but I am intrigued to see what Mike does with him, to see if he inserts him potentially or maybe early in the season. I don't anticipate, however, Chris, and you can tell me if you disagree with this, I don't anticipate us going as deep in the season as we did last year, still not knowing who the full weekend rotation was going to be, like it was kind of with Derek a little bit last year, not knowing 100% where he was going to end up.
Yeah, I don't anticipate that again. I think it's a race with 4 guys to figure out 3 spots, and then the other guy is going to go to the bullpen and provide a lot of depth in the bullpen if and when he has to come out during the weekend. The Rivas thing, I do believe that you're correct that he's I'm not going to say the 4th guy, but he's in that mix of 4 people. We'll say that much. I think that if we do go to Rivas, it would go Saunier on Saturday and then Rivas on Sunday. Mike really loves to go lefty, righty, lefty, or lefty, righty, the other way. So right. I confuse myself. So I think that would be if Rivas gets in the mix, then you're looking at Elliott, Saunier, and Rivas on Sunday.
And Nick, I know you were intrigued by Rivas as well, but any other pitchers that you've been keeping your eye on? Like Chris said, it's pretty much a 4-horse race, you feel like, for starting spots. But you never know. There could be some sleepers out there, and it's always hard to tell at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, you've got some veterans, with I know we didn't see a whole bunch of them last year, but you got Jackson Kimbrell and Mitch Morrell coming back, who I've heard have both had really good falls. And you can't forget about Mason Nichols. He was one of the guys last year that we were in a pinch, and he, as a freshman, came up in some key spots. But yeah, those 3 guys out of the bullpen, and obviously whichever one of the 4 starters we just talked about doesn't end up making the rotation, they're going to be, they don't make the rotation, but they might be one of the first guys out the bullpen. So like y'all said, I don't think we go as long as we did last year without figuring out that 3 guys, that we can ride with, barring any kind of, injuries or anything. But yeah, I think it's going to be a easier decision this year, finding those 3 guys.
And Chris, I'm having a complete brain lapse here, but Riley Maddox, he is back from injury this season, correct? Or is he still recovering? Because I don't know why I'm blanking on that all of a sudden. It just completely left my mind.
I believe Riley's back.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see how he bounces back. He will not be in the starting rotation, obviously, but coming out of the bullpen, I'm interested to see how he recovers from that injury and what kind of usage they get out of him. And you mentioned I'm excited about Mason Nichols. I almost said the wrong Mason there for a second. So definitely looking forward to seeing some guys show up and show out this year that were kind of bits and pieces of last year, but showed flashes. Really looking forward to see how they grow. And we know that Mike Bianco's system is going to grow them well. And they're going to have a great catcher behind the mound as well, one way or the other. So they're going to have they're not losing anything. Obviously, Dunhurst was fantastic behind the plate not going to go step down at all this year with who Ole Miss has manning the play. Before we go any further, I want to remind you guys about our wonderful sponsors who are back with us this year. You guys know Dead Soxy. They're on board for everything. They're on board for football. They're on board for baseball. We love them. You love them. And I'm very excited about having them on board with us this year. I'm going to share this right here. They have a winter sale going on right now. Bundle up and save big. It's a clutch. Buy one, get one free. Temperatures dropping. They have prime. It is prime sock season. And the BOGO winter sale is going on now. When you buy 2 sock bundles, you get the second bundle for 50% off, or you can get a free pair of socks with any single pair you purchase. To get the deal, just put any 2 bundles or any 2 pairs of socks in your cart and apply the code Rebel Walk. If you've got the bundles in there, it'll take 50% off the least expensive bundle, obviously. If you've got 2 pairs, it will make the least expensive pair free. So head over to deadsoxy.com and take advantage. These guys, I mean, they're fantastic, guys. High quality socks, great prices, super comfortable, super warm. You're going to love every pair of socks they have to offer. Look at these designs. I mean, they're just amazing. So head over to deadsoxy.com, use the code RebelWalk on this. And as always, you can use the code RebelWalk to get 25% off site-wide with any order, as always. So be sure and check that out. And again, coming on board with us this year, for the second year in a row, is Lee McPherson of Remax of Orange Beach. She is fantastic on Twitter. You guys know her at Lee at the Beach, and she is also a fantastic realtor, and we were thrilled to have her on board. They have been around. They have 50-plus years of realtor experience on her team, and Lee McPherson is the leader of that team, of course, and they also have someone else who just completed her 20th year anniversary with the team. They have been ranked in the top 50 or higher every single month since 2012. That is pretty darn amazing for a realtor group. So if you need anything in the Orange Beach area, down there in Florida, Perrito Key, any of those areas like that, be sure and check her out at Lee at the Beach or online at Remax of Orange Beach. And we thank them both very much for being a part of our shows. All right. We were talking about the pitchers a minute ago. What I would like to know from both of you before we dive into this mercy rule that I want to touch on a little bit, because what a crazy thing is happening in the SEC. Although it may or may not really come into play, it's just certainly something interesting from the SEC of all leagues. But sleepers, we talked about pitchers, but in general on Ole Miss, anybody in particular you guys are really looking at to have a breakout year that might be flying under the radar a little bit? And Chris, we've been starting with you, so Nick, we'll start with you this time. Sleeper player or two, we'll just try to do one apiece that you're really looking at to have a breakout year, even if it's a transfer, somebody who hasn't been on the team to really break out this year.
Just a pitcher?
No, anybody on the team.
I think I'm going to go with Ethan Groff, guy from Tulane who had a really good year last year, and I was looking at some stats, his from the year before last year, the jump he made was tremendous. And, I think he adds a bat at the top of the lineup, some speed, can hit for a little bit of power, up at the top of the lineup. And I'm really excited to get to see him play this year and see, what he can add to Mike Bianco's lineup.
Chris?
Hard to call a guy like Kemp Alderman a sleeper, but boy, has he crushed the ball in fall ball. I mean, some of these stats that I've seen are incredible. We're talking balls off the scoreboard at Swayze. The guy's set for a tremendous, tremendous campaign. If we can bracket him with a couple guys and have, somebody hit behind him, somebody hit in front of him where he sees pitches, he's going to absolutely obliterate the baseball. And I'm just so excited to see it. So I'm looking at Kemp Alderman to have a breakout year and, improve on his 11 home runs from last year. Improve on his 15 doubles. I think he's just primed and ready to have just an outstanding year.
Maybe this is stupid of me to think he's going to have an outbreak year because he's not that kind of player necessarily, but I'm just excited to watch Garrett Wood one more time. The guy is a teammate like nobody else. He is fantastic, and he's not going to get as much playing time as some of these guys, but he really made the most of some of his moments last year. I guess I can't really consider that a breakout year because he's not going to get that kind of playing time, but I am really excited to watch how he does because he really came in and provided just some steadiness when he came into the lineup last year. So I'm excited to see what he can bring when he is needed, when he's called upon. because I really feel like he's got a good bat, he's got a good eye, and he's really got a good fielding glove. And it's just a matter of him getting in there. So I guess not really a breakout year, but I am excited about Garrett Wood and what he's going to bring this year. All right, guys. So the SEC has decided that in order to prevent Tennessee, I guess, from beating anybody by 30, they have decided to implement a 10-run after 7 innings mercy rule in conference play. Now, it's been a mercy rule for forever in the non-conference games, especially early in the season. And thank goodness for that, because when Ole Miss was playing, I believe it was Alcorn State last year, and Peyton Chatinier stole 3 bases in a row. But we didn't want to keep watching that all night, as fun as that was. But conference play, I'm on the side of the fence that as much as I don't think it's going to come into play that much, I don't like it. It's the SEC, not Little League. And if you're getting beat like that, well, that's just too bad. You should have played better. I get that it saves pitching, and I understand the point of it. You don't want people to play all night long, especially if it's a Friday or a Saturday and you've got a game or 2 left on the weekend. I understand the premise of it, but it seems a little far-fetched for the Southeastern Conference, the most dominant conference in college baseball, to implement. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. I know it's not a huge story, but it is somewhat of a big story because it is the first year that this is happening in conference play for the SEC. Obviously, Vols fans are calling it the Tennessee rule, but that's not seriously why it was implemented, even though I joked about that. But curious your guys' thoughts on this new mercy rule, if you have any about it. And
Nick, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, kind of like you said, early in the year, okay, yeah, I get it. But in conference play, we're in the SEC. It's not T-ball. So if you're getting beat by 10, yeah, you're going to have to waste half your bullpen, and that's part of it, But I guess there's a flip side to it. If Ole Miss is getting beat 10-0, we're going to like it. Say, hey, we don't have to use half our bullpen.
Exactly.
Let's get out of there. But, if we're beating LSU, by 10 in the 7th inning and they call the game, hey, let's score 10 more, So it's one of those deals, it depends what side of the coin you're on. So I don't think, like you said, I don't think it'll make a huge difference. How many times do we see it, and how many times will Ole Miss get beat by 10 runs in an SEC game? Probably not that many, but when it does, if it does, when it does, either way, it could help us out. So I'm kind of indifferent on it.
So I did a little digging on this yesterday, and actually somebody dug before I did, which was kind of interesting. I think it ended up being the guy came up with 21 games maybe that it affected last year, which is a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I just looked at the first weekend, and the first weekend was 4 to 5, I think. But the interesting stat to me was 2 of those were Ole Miss games. So we run ruled Auburn, and then on Friday night, I think, or Sunday, either way, it doesn't matter. Auburn run ruled us once, and then we run ruled Auburn once. And so I do think it's going to come into play a little bit more frequently than people think it will. I think it did bite us a little bit in the bottom last year in early season when we were trying to get some guys. We would have tried to get some guys work as far as innings go in those late innings, and we didn't have that opportunity for them to get out and pitch the bottom of the 7th or the bottom of the 8th inning when we were run ruling the team. So it's a dual-edged sword, so to speak. I don't really have a problem with it one way or the other. It will limit the number of innings that staffs get early on in quote preseason or non-conference play when you're trying to get pitchers work. So that's where I struggle with it when we're trying to actually get guys that we're trying to figure out where they fit or trying to get them to figure out where they belong in the bullpen, and you can't get them work, and then you have to get them into a game to just see what they're going to do, and stuff falls apart. And I'm not going to call anybody's name because that's just not appropriate. But it did affect some pitchers last year. I do know that.
Yeah, I agree with that, and especially this year because Ole Miss lost several key pitchers from last season, and now we've got guys even like Grayson Saunier, who's a freshman, and guys like that, young guys, transfer guys that haven't pitched here, and you want to get them that work. So that I agree with you. I feel like that's going to could affect the pitching staff as we go. It just depends on the moxie of the pitcher, I guess, in the long run. All right, so First game of the schedule. We'll go over this first series right quick because it is going to be against a team that Ole Miss would, again, rarely see. And this is coming from the Northeast, and it is the Delaware Blue Hens. Don't take their name lightly. They have a pretty solid baseball program, and they are going to be excited to come to Oxford, Mississippi, where it's going to be warm, and they're going to get to play an SEC baseball team, and not just any SEC baseball team. They're going to get to play the defending national champion baseball team in Oxford, Mississippi. Last year, they did have a little bit of a rough year. They went 25-26 overall. They only went 8-15 in conference play. So, but I throw records out the window from last season for pretty much anybody, because baseball in particular changes so much on a year-to-year basis, because you have so much outgoing and incoming change with the draft, with transfers, the way it all is. You can never look at a last year's team and expect it to be the same thing in the following season. Curious how you guys feel about Delaware. Any particular interesting notes you guys have on the Blue Hens? I don't know much about them. I'll just be honest. I haven't watched a lot of Delaware baseball. I know they typically have a decent club. They're not just a pushover. They're not like the strongest team out there, but nevertheless, not a team you just want to overlook.
I mean, I'm just excited to get back out on the field. I think that's what everybody's looking at, is that it's the first game of the first series of the year. They're going to have a little bit of a national, I guess this will be the final national championship celebration. I don't know how long we're going to keep going with this, but they've got something planned for Friday night or Friday before the game. So if you do have tickets and are able to make it out to Swayze, do encourage you to get there early to witness whatever they're going to do. I would imagine we're going to, hang the banner or raise the flag or do whatever it is. So really excited to see that. But I think that it's just an opportunity to finally put last year behind us a little bit, hang that flag and look at it every now and then, but turn the page, so to speak. We've had all the celebrations, we've gotten all the rings and everything else like that. But now it's time for the 23 team to really put their mark on things and to prove what they're able to do. And I think it starts on February the 17th at 4:00. And so that's what I'm looking forward to is Hunter towing the rubber and throwing that first pitch for a strike, and us saying, okay, well, it's a new year now, and we're 0-0. That's where we start. That's where every team starts. And just looking forward to that, really.
Yeah, and this Delaware team did beat Notre Dame and Maryland last year, so just a little nugget on them. But yeah, I'm 100% with you. You at some point the celebration ends. It's been okay. It was fun. It was great. It never gets old watching the video. As lifelong Ole Miss fans, I know we were all three just ecstatic watching that championship win last year. I was in the press box, so I couldn't cheer like I wanted to. I'd have gotten kicked out. But it was a lot of fun. Chris, you were down on the field. You got to cheer probably more than I did. But it was great. But as you say, Chris, it's 2023 now, and June of 2022 is a long way behind us. And a lot of those players are now playing professional baseball. And it's time to take this new lineup out there. Mike Bianco's got to be feeling refreshed. There's a massive load off his back, and I think that's going to be a key. A kind of underrated key to this season, I think, is there's no pressure on Mike Bianco. For the first time in 20 years, he has no pressure on his back anymore to get to Omaha. Now, yes, does he want to get to Omaha? Of course he does. Is there a massive weight on his shoulders of what's going to happen if I don't? No, not at all.
I mean, I think Keith said it after last year that Mike Bianco has he didn't say, I don't know if he used the word lifetime contract, but he basically said Mike Bianco stays at Ole Miss as long as he wants to. And I'm putting an end to this now. Yes, I agree with you, Austin, that all the pressure is off Mike. And I think that hopefully that we'll see a looser Mike this year. And not that he hasn't been loose, but one that coaches without the pressure that you've sometimes seen Mike and Nick. I know Nick has seen it in press conferences where he's gone somewhat toe to toe with reporters on asking the same question over and over and over again in multiple press conferences. I think he's looser. I think he's going to be to coach like that. I know our players are looser because they don't have that pressure that other people are putting on them to get to Omaha. So I think it's going to be a loose team. I think it's going to be a business-like team. much like they were last year when we saw them in the regional in Miami, like we saw them in the super regional in Hattiesburg and in Omaha. They didn't go any of those places for a vacation. They went to win ball games, and they said that's why they went there. I think Kemp was quoted in the press availability from a couple of weeks ago that somebody asked him, or it was the ladies forum, what did y'all get to do for fun in Omaha? And Kemp said, we didn't go to Omaha for fun. We went to Omaha to win ball games. And I think that's the mentality that this team has.
And it showed so well. We noted it several times in their practices, just how focused they were. And it showed in their record in the postseason, 10-1. Their only loss in the postseason came to Arkansas in a non-elimination game for the Rebels. It would have been an elimination game for Arkansas. It was not for Ole Miss. And that was their only loss. They bounced right back and took it to them the next night to keep going. So very, very excited about this season. The TV schedule, real quick, was released today too. Speaking of the schedule for games. So every game that Ole Miss is going to have on television was released today. They're going to have quite a few too. That's part of the benefit of being the defending national champs. Here you go, throwing that up on your screen now so you can see. And I'll scroll down a little bit here for you in a minute so you can see that whole thing. But you're going to see ESPNU, SEC Network, ESPN2, a lot in there. A lot of TV time for the Ole Miss Rebels coming up this season. That last game there, both those games against Auburn, that's going to be a big weekend as well. So those are all your national TV games for the year. Looking forward to that. Ole Miss is going to get a lot of exposure, and sometimes they're going to get exposure on these networks that you don't have to pay the extra to get.
Yeah, for those of us that live out of town or out of state, it's really convenient for us to be able to watch these games on TV. And I'm super pumped that we're going to get that, that March 16th time slot. Well, it's also during March Madness, which is really interesting. I for certain will have my TV team tuned to ESPNU to watch our team start the SEC part of the national championship defense.
Absolutely. And Nick, I'm sure you're going to try to make it up to Oxford for some of these games as well.
Yep.
You still live close enough to make that drive. So
Yep, I'm definitely going to try and make some. I definitely, like I said it earlier in the show, I've got LSU circled. I think that's what I'm going to try and make. We swept them last year. They've got a really good ball club, and I think they're coming in with a little bit of bad blood. I think it's going to be a crazy weekend there. So that's one that I definitely want to make.
And Dylan Crews is going to be a player to watch this season for sure. He is going to have a big bat just like he did last year. And he's already getting talked about as player of the year, and all of the awards are already being talked about. Obviously, he's projected to potentially go to Dylan Crews. But Ole Miss handling last year, and no reason they can't do it again this year. All right, guys, any final notes from either one of you before we end it for tonight? Anything else you guys want to add?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm just super excited about the upcoming year. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch the veterans be leaders, like Peyton Chatagnier and Jacob Gonzalez and TJ McCants. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch them be leaders, but it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the newcomers as well. So super excited about both sets of guys in Team Ole Miss.
Well, I'm super excited about it. It's going to be another really fun year. Every year I look forward to baseball season, and none more so than after coming off a national championship. He is at Rebel Inc. on Twitter. That's Chris Muller. That's Rebel INC at Rebel Inc. You can follow him there. Nick is at Nick Filipich 11 on Twitter, and I am at Austin on Air 1021. Of course, the Rebel Walk is at the Rebel Walk. Real easy to remember. And as always, stay tuned to the Rebel Walk and therebelwalk.com for all of your coverage all season long. Chris and I will keep you updated on shows throughout the season as well. And we'll get Nick in from time to time on some of maybe the bigger weekends and stuff to get his thoughts. But for the most part, you'll see me and Chris just as you were used to last year. And hopefully every now and then we might get a special guest or two. I can't guarantee that, but we're going to do our best to try to get some special guests from time to time throughout the season. Until then, February the 17th at 4:00 in the afternoon, Ole Miss opens the baseball season. It is almost here, less than 2 full weeks away. I am stoked. It feels like it's taken a long time to get here, but we're all super excited. Thanks so much for tuning in as always. And thanks again to Dead Soxy and Lee at the Beach and her group at Remax for sponsoring our shows. We look forward to talking to you all again next time. Hotty toddy and have a great night.